Welcome to our lesson about the Extruded Cut command. And now let's create a sketch on the top plane. In this lesson, I'll be creating a cube. There's my square. Right-click and select. Now I'm going to select these two lines and apply an equal relation. Smart dimension, 80 millimeters, let's say. Accept. And let's exit the sketch. Let's activate the Extruded Boss command. And we'll create a blind 80 millimeter extrusion. Accept. Next, I'm going to build a 60 millimeter hole. It'll originate from this face and it'll go through the entire solid. I also want it centered on this face. There's a few different ways that we can do this. One way is to make the center of the hole 40 millimeters from this edge and 40 millimeters from this edge. Let's right-click, insert a sketch, and we'll drop a circle here. Apply dimensions now. Smart dimension. Let's specify the diameter to be 60 millimeters. OK. And now this dimension will be 40 millimeters. And the dimension between the center of the circle to the opposite side will also be 40 millimeters. Accept. And let's exit the sketch. When the sketch is selected, activate the Extruded Cut command. As you see, the options here are very similar to those of the Extruded Boss. I'm going to use a blind cut of 80 millimeters in depth and click OK. Here's the cut, which goes through the entire solid and originates at the center of this face. Let's activate Instant 3D. Double-click on my model. Let's change the dimensions of the solid a little bit. Let's make this dimension 120. And this dimension will make 90 millimeters. And just pan a little bit. As you can see, the hole is no longer centered, nor does the cut go all the way through the solid. So let's learn how we can fix this situation. There's definitely a way that we can create this part which will accommodate the need for potential resizing. Let's modify Sketch 2, right-click, Edit Sketch, and let's delete these dimensions. Now let's move the circle a little bit, add a construction line between this point and this corner point. Right-click and select to close the tool. Now, since the end of this construction line is attached to existing geometry, the line is fully defined already. I'm going to Shift-select my construction line and the center of the circle and add a midpoint relation. Let's accept and exit the sketch. Now my hole is always going to stay at the center of this face, no matter the size. Let's right-click on Cut Extrude 1 and select Edit Feature. Under End Condition, instead of Blind, I'm going to select Through All. Let's accept. Now our hole goes through the entire part. Let's double-click on this feature, select this dimension, and let's change it back to 80 millimeters. Select the other dimension back to 80 millimeters as well. As you see, the hole is still located at the center of the face, and it still goes all the way through. Now, when I change the diameter of my hole, it remains centered. Let's snap back to 60 millimeters. Take an isometric view. I'd like to create another hole originating in the middle of this face this time. Right-click, Insert Sketch. Activate the Centerline command. Let's create a construction line from this point to the midpoint of this line. Right-click and select. Now let's drop a circle here. I'll just scratch the line to awaken its midpoint, and then I can apply a coincident relation automatically between the center of my circle and this line. Let's apply dimensions, 40 millimeters for the diameter of the circle. OK. And the sketch is now fully defined, appearing in black line. Let's exit. Activate the Extruded Cut command. Our cut will be blind, 40 millimeters in depth, and accept. Next, I want to create a sketch on a face that isn't currently visible. Let's right-click, select Other. With this face selected, go to the Sketch tab and let's select 2D Sketch. Once again, I'm going to use a construction line between this point and this point. Right-click and select. Notice that I'm able to select entities now right through the solid. Let's create a rectangle now using the center rectangle method. I'll give this line a mouse scratch to awaken the center point. There it is. Left-click when you see it. And I'll drop my rectangle about here. Right-click and select. Let's shift-select these two lines. Add an equal relation. Apply some dimensions now. Let's make this dimension 70 millimeters. OK. And we're ready to exit this sketch. Let's go to the Features tab now, activate the Extruded Cut command. From the End Condition drop-down menu, let's select Up to Next, and then Accept. Since this hole is wider than the hole originating at the top, this extrusion goes through the entire model up to this face. Let's edit our sketch. Let's change this dimension here to 60 millimeters. Click outside the box to accept. Now the hole goes up to this face. If I select the sketch and double-click the dimension, let's turn Instant 3D off. Okay, now we can double-click the dimension and open the input box. I'm able to change the dimension here and click OK. However, if I do that, I've got to hit Rebuild in order to make the changes take effect. Let's create an extrusion originating from this sketch. Right-click on this face, New Sketch. Let's activate the Line tool. And let's awaken the midpoint of this side. Connect it to this midpoint over here. And let's exit the sketch. With Sketch 5 selected, let's activate the Extruded Boss Base command. SOLIDWORKS asks me if I want to close the sketch with model edges. Let's click No. Now the only available option here is the Thin feature. Let's specify the thickness, say 10 millimeters. The thickness type will be in one direction. Let's make our extrusion 60 millimeters in depth and accept. And let's create another hole. We'll need to start with a sketch on this face. Insert Sketch. Activate the Centerline command. We'll create a construction line from this corner to this corner. And a circle now. Let's apply dimensions. Do we want to leave it driving? Cancel out. Now let's dimension the diameter of the circle. Let's say 40 millimeters. And let's exit the sketch. Activate the Extruded Cut command. Let's check Thin feature to activate this control area. For type, we'll use midplane. 10 millimeters is fine. Let's accept. Now SOLIDWORKS asks which body we want to keep, body 1 or body 2. I'm going to select all bodies. OK. Now we have two solid bodies in our Feature Manager design tree. Let's try to edit Cut Extrude Thin 1. Right-click, Edit Feature. Notice that SOLIDWORKS won't let me disable the Thin feature area now. Let's cancel out of the Property Manager and let's delete this feature. But I do want to keep Sketch 6. Right-click on the Thin feature, select Delete. In order to keep the sketch, I need to uncheck Also Delete Absorbed Features. Let's uncheck this option and click Yes. Now let's activate the Extruded Cut command again. Oops. Extruded Cut. Select Sketch 6. I'm going to accept the default settings. Now let's edit the feature. Right-click, Edit Feature. Now the thin feature control area isn't even visible in the Cut Extrude Property Manager. Let's cancel out of the Property Manager. And this concludes our lesson about working with the Extruded Cut command. Go ahead and save your work.